Hello, I'm Cheryl McCarthy. Welcome to One to One. Last summer, as U.S. military forces left Afghanistan after 20 years of war, many of us watched in horror the chaos that ensued. Thousands of Afghans, fearful of persecution once the Taliban took over, rushed the airport in Kabul in an attempt to board the departing planes. But many of them didn't make it and remained stranded in Afghanistan or have fled to neighboring countries. What will become of them? Zohra Saeed, poet, editor, and distinguished lecturer at the Macaulay Honors College, has joined forces with her former student, Meha Guri, an immigration lawyer, to help get an Afghan writer and his family out of the country. But it's a complicated and expensive process. Welcome. According to the New York Times, 65,000 Afghans will be admitted to the United States this fall, and another 30,000 are expected over the next year. And that's in addition to the 97,000 who have already settled here since 2001 when the war began. Zohra, how did you get involved with this particular family?
We were working with the writer. We're using Ahmed as his name for now. We were working with Ahmed for collecting Uzbek lyrical poetry that were performed as songs for many generations. So he was collecting them and putting them together as a book, and we were going to translate it.
And you started working with him like 3 years ago, right?
Yes, yes. It was,
okay.
yeah.
And then what happened? You heard about got concerned with the evacuation and decided that he needed to get out of there? What happened?
Yes, I wanted to check and find out with the family if they needed to be on evacuation lists. At the time, a lot of Afghan Americans like myself and who are artists, even writers and filmmakers, were getting involved in coordinating evacuation lists. So we'd find people that we knew who were at high risk in Afghanistan and then putting them on lists to get them on flights out. So originally we had put him and his sister Sarah, who is a girls' high school principal in the north, in a rural area, on this list, but we couldn't, it didn't work out. We couldn't get them out. The airports were crowded. We got Sarah, who is the principal, to Kabul airport, and she missed the bombing with her young son, missed the bombing by like 10 minutes. That was on August 26th. So it was very chaotic, and you'd have to be either very aggressive or have a lot of support to get through the gates, through the checkpoints. There's Taliban on the outside whipping and harming people who are waiting there. Military weren't very kind to those waiting on lines either, so it was very difficult to get through just the entryway. That's why there was so much chaos.
Why this family in particular, what kind of danger are they in?
As writers, as Uzbeks, as ethnic minorities, they are in a lot of danger. They have, Sarah has established and created this school, girls' high school in the provinces. She trained with USAID funding, she trained women to be teachers at the schools. So she has had a mark on her even before August, because girls' schools were in danger beginning, well, always, but mostly May. The Taliban started attacking a lot of the girls' schools in the north. And as Uzbek minorities, as former government workers, when you're a writer, you're also multiple. You have other jobs as well. So for Ahmed, he was a civil servant. He worked for the Afghan government. He ran a sports complex for young teens, and it served both male and female. So what he did, and this all happened in August, when there was, the list of female students, he had destroyed all of that, putting himself in more danger, because that was some of the things the Taliban was looking for. So he fled from his own town, and so did Sarah. They fled to Mazar, a bigger city that is, you can be a little more anonymous in, and are in hiding now, and have been in hiding since.
Now, they belong to the Uzbek minority,
Yes.
which you belong to as well.
Yes.
What makes one an Uzbek? Are you from Uzbekistan, or what makes you Uzbek?
Well, the way the nation-state borders are sort of built that comes later, people have been living, they're indigenous to northern Afghanistan. So Afghanistan is made of multiple ethnic groups, Hazara, Uzbek, and religious groups, so Afghan Hindus, Afghan Sikhs, Tajiks, and Pashtuns. So in the north, it's a majority Uzbek, Tajik, and Hazaras in the central areas. Of course, everyone's in the city as well. It's a representative of the city. But the work he was doing and his work as a civil servant and as an ethnic minority puts him in danger. Also, in 2001, Uzbeks were very much involved in catching Taliban and working with the U.S. government to kind of, sorry, I just got really emotional. So the Uzbeks were very much involved in working with the U.S. government to get the Taliban out. This is 2001. So a lot of the attacks that happened early on, the cities that started falling were all from the north first, and then the rest of Afghanistan was taken. The government doesn't have too much, even the Afghan government in all these 20 years didn't have that much involvement with a lot of the northern areas. So they're much more vulnerable and did not have the kind of attention that, say, a main city like Kabul had. So even those who were evacuated were mostly those who were around Kabul, because it was just, they just had economic class connections that were stronger than those who live in rural areas. So the revenge killings that started happening and are still continuing, there is a new governor now in an area that is very much, is very violent. All of these things put them in great danger because they are just regular people without any, they don't have the kind of economic capabilities to, put money together to travel and go
Right.
and leave. So
And they're perceived as enemies of the Taliban.
yeah,
Okay.
specifically for that area.
So you reached out to Meha, your former student
Yeah.
at Hunter College, who is an immigration lawyer. Meha, your family is originally from Pakistan,
Yes.
correct? You were already, or were you already working on behalf of Afghans who had been coming to the U.S. since the war started? Tell me about your work.
So I work at a nonprofit called Neighbors Link in Westchester. We cover mostly from Westchester County to Albany, kind of that's our catchment area. And the kind of theme of the nonprofit is to strengthen the community through the healthy integration of immigrants. So essentially all and every immigration need is what we try to do. We had been doing a few Afghan evacuation cases prior to me talking to Zora, but it ended up, we did pivot because we do a lot of like removal defense, asylum for people who are already in the US. I reached out to my bosses when I heard about Zora's case, and they were ready to get moving with it. And we sprang into action as soon as possible.
So when you heard about this family, when Zora decided you got to get this family out, the two of you decided that you were going to try to bring them here through a process called humanitarian parole.
Yes.
How does that work?
So it's essentially a permission that you get, and it allows you to you have a certain amount of days to get into the US. You do have to pay for your flight here. And you actually, because there's no American consulate or embassy in Afghanistan, you have to leave Afghanistan, go to a third country, pick it up from an embassy or consulate, and then come to the United States, where you are kept at a different refugee center, and then the process begins here, and then you have to apply for asylum after that. So it's quite a long process, and we're still in like the first stage of waiting for the application to be accepted.
And what are the qualifications for humanitarian parole as opposed to just being a regular refugee?
So there has to be a significant humanitarian reason that you're looking to flee your home country from, and there needs to be a sponsor and a beneficiary. So Zora was the sponsor for Ahmed and Sarah's family, and she filled out, there's a lot of paperwork involved, lot of bank statements. I mean, like, you have to show that you can provide for them financially as well. And she really stepped up and did everything that was necessary for his family.
And I was reading about how you managed to collect those documents. A lot of it was done through technology.
Yeah.
Tell me how you did that.
Well, we go through WhatsApp, through phone photographs of documents. There's no safe place for like a central using computers or anything of that sort, and they don't have access to that. So it was getting photos of those documents.
They basically took selfies and
Yeah.
sent them to you. Okay.
Yeah, and as clear as possible the documents to prove their own, sort of their own personal documents. So that I would send to her, and then she would process.
Yeah,
before.
we print them out, do whatever we had to make them, brighter and clearer, print out their selfies as passport pictures. There were creative solutions to getting things
Yeah.
together. But it worked. We ended up getting everything that we needed. Luckily for this application, the bulk of the information that we need and the signatures that we need are from the sponsor. So we were able to get the signatures that we needed. Although we don't live that close either.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
a lot of this was happening via email as well.
So, and you're talking about 12 people: Ahmed, his sister Sarah,
Their children.
Ahmed's father,
Yes.
and their a bunch of children
Yeah.
as well.
Yeah. So the father is a theologian, but he would preach against the Taliban and sort of talk about religion in the most historical, natural way, rather than what was being politicized. So he was in danger as well. So we filed for him, and the 4 children, of course, and then Sarah and her 2 children. So.
Okay. So you filed the applications, you completed the application process in October.
Yeah.
So what happens now? How long does it take before you hear anything?
It's a great question. So it used to be, so humanitarian parole is not a very common application. And there were, according to my understanding, about 3 to 6 people processing them in immigration, in USCIS, prior to this. They have recently trained about 40-something more people to go through it because they have received thousands of applications. I think they did like 9,000 a year. And in the past couple of months, they've received tens of thousands of applications. So there is a bit of a backlog.
Okay.
Their numbers were, it would take anywhere from 3 to 10 months to process these. And unfortunately, they are prioritizing people who have made it outside of Afghanistan first. And then they'll focus on people in Afghanistan, which is a little counterintuitive because I think the people who are in Afghanistan are in the most danger. But that is the way that they are moving forward.
And so you had to raise money. There are expenses involved in this, right?
Yeah. For the humanitarian parole itself, we had to raise about almost $7,000. And that was done through crowdsourcing, but also MEHA helped a lot as well and got the bulk of the funding for the parole applications, which is $575
Okay.
per person. And that was an incredible gift, so thank you for.
There was actually,
Yeah.
it's one of the good things to come out of this is the sheer volume of people that want to help and they don't know how to. So it was just constantly people, I feel like on all social media platforms saying like, what can I do? How can I help? How can I help? So there was, there were other like law firms involved, people who I didn't know. And, we just knew each other through professional networks who said like, that's it, that's good, I believe you, and just sent over money. It was kind of
Okay.
beautiful.
Our recent New York Times article reported that the Afghan economy is really near collapse. It's hard to get money, it's hard to get food, it's hard to get medicine. How are Ahmed and Sarah and their family members getting along under those conditions?
Well, since no one is working and the banks are pretty much closed, there's a freeze on, I think they're asking for now a petition, Afghan Americans and other Americans who are interested in getting $150 million released of frozen funds back to the Afghan people so they can have access to it. But for the regular everyday people, they really depend on family abroad, on their own savings, on they have family abroad as well in Europe, so they've been providing for the family. So we're just raising funds for mostly the route, the movement out of Afghanistan. So that itself will be about 30 to 40,000, because when you have HP, there are no evacuations, so we'd have to fund all of it ourselves. But right now there are other systems working. There's Hawala system, which is like, I'm not entirely sure I completely understand it, but it's sort of a way of money transfer that is cultural. There's also Western Union that I think allows only $200 money transfers, but not much more than that. So it's very limited, and everyone is really living according to their means. It's not like.
And how have you publicized? Did you do GoFundMe? How did you publicize? You know, we got this family that
Yeah.
is in danger, needs to get out.
Well, I'm really lucky. I have a lot of really fantastic writer friends, so through them, getting the word out. Also through GoFundMe, but GoFundMe will only fund the parts that are fees that would be U.S. based.
Okay.
Chuffed was an organization we're working with, a crowdsourcing organization that is in Australia actually, but they are much more flexible with where you send funds. So we're working with, we're doing a fundraiser on Chuffed, and Upset Press, which is my press, or a nonprofit. So we've been using our account and keeping accounts that way, and giving out tax sort of like letters and things like that for everyone who donate, as a way to kind of manage and work it. I definitely couldn't do it alone. I needed that family of writers, of Afghan Americans, of every friend I had, American friends who were coming in to help. So it's amazing, the connections and the kind of care and empathy I've encountered while getting attention for this family. It's the countries have closed their doors, borders have closed, but human beings have really done so much to try to transcend over those things and to be helpful.
Mehad, I assume that this is one of the biggest migrations of refugees to the United States since perhaps the Vietnam War. Where are they going to? Have they been coming to New York? And if so, where are they and how are they doing?
So they're actually taking military bases around the country. I think the biggest ones are in Fort Dix, New Jersey, and there's one in Texas. I don't remember the name of it. But they're currently holding thousands of people right now. And there's also, because the volume is so much, there is a bit of a scramble to get resources. And I've seen things kind of in my own small community of people, raising money for books for them, and because in addition to just food and shelter, they also need something to do. So there are people are getting religious kind of materials for them as well. But yeah, they're being processed in military bases at the moment. And it's kind of, there's no guarantee of how long that's taking.
So they're basically applying for asylum, correct?
So they have, they will apply for asylum. Once you get to the US, you have 1 year to apply for asylum. What they're focusing on more so is getting work permits so they can begin working as soon as possible. A lot of the medical evaluations, especially with COVID, that's been something that people are concerned about, understandably, and just housing. So there are a lot of resettlement agencies that they're put in touch with, but there's a little bit of a gap between when they come and the resettlement agencies. And so there's an effort to kind of bring that together.
You talked about all the people who have stepped up to try to help them. If we have viewers out there who would like to contribute to this effort, how can they do that?
To help this particular family, we do have a Chuffed page where we put all the information, and we've listed all the things we need to get for them: passports, visa fees, travel for all of them. So, and we've been getting some donations, but we would love that kind of support.
Is the government also providing assistance to Afghans who are fleeing the situation in that country?
There are certain things that are happening. So, for example, the work permits, the applications are usually $500 something. Those fees have been waived. Fees for green cards have been waived for Afghans. but there is, and that is kind of later down the line for a lot of people. We do want to put more pressure to have more help and more funds kind of allocated towards this effort. There's actually something called, it's going to be presented to Congress. It's a bill called the Afghan Adjustment Act. It's very similar to what was the Cuban Adjustment Act in the 80s, because there were a lot of Cuban refugees coming through, which essentially expedites the process for people who are of a certain nationality to get a green card and to get settled into the U.S. quite quickly, within, I think, a year.
But those who have humanitarian parole, they would get funding, government funding for 3 months, and then they'd be on their own.
Funding to live.
To live, yeah.
Okay.
And then SIV, then those with special immigration visas, who worked with the military, they of course have a pathway to a green card much faster. There are P2s, which are for those Afghans who worked as journalists or through NGOs. So there's a status for them. I'm not entirely sure what the funding is for them, but I know in evacuations the priority has been SIV and green card holders in Afghanistan, whereas HP and P2 have to. Yeah.
You've had to learn a whole lot about this
I learned a
process,
lot.
you know, to help get this family over
Yeah.
here. Zora, you are from, your family are Uzbeks, and Meha, your family is from Pakistan. How have your family histories influenced what you're doing now?
Sure.
Well, I'm Afghan, so Uzbek is one of the, my nationality would be Afghan. Well, I'm American, but American Afghan. But Uzbek is 12% of the country, so we're a linguistic, so we speak Turkic languages, Turkmen, Uzbek, Kazakhs in Afghanistan speak a Turkic language, so that's our difference. So my connection is really, I mean, I work with this family now because they've been the hardest to evacuate and get to safety, and I have I'm dedicated to them because of, one, the contract we did with them to publish their work. They do, Ahmed does really rare translation, a collection of works that haven't been written out. So Afghan Uzbek is very special because it still uses the Farsi script, whereas Uzbek in Uzbekistan uses Latin script, and before that Cyrillic script. So my ancestors came as refugees to Afghanistan. And so for me, working with Afghans now is very important. Even though I haven't gone back, I haven't seen the country, but for me it's very important to connect and help. And before that I worked with other ethnic groups as well, Pashtun, Tajik, Kabuli, you know, we did, whoever was in danger, we were working to evacuate, put them on those evacuation lists.
Right.
So,
How about you, Meher?
Yeah. My family's from Pakistan. I was born in New York. And I feel like as an American, I have a duty to help these people because our U.S. presence was there for 20 years. There's so much that we've hired so many of these people. There's so many programs that we were involved in, and we kind of just left a lot of people behind. And we left them in such a dangerous situation that I think, and I think a lot of Americans actually feel this pull.
A moral obligation
Exactly,
to help
that
out.
we need to do something because this is kind of our fault that we did some stuff there and we left them behind.
We've got about 3 minutes left, so I want to hear from each of you. What do you want to see happen?
You can go.
well, very easy. I would like that family to be in a safe place. I would love for those Afghans who are in rural areas as well to get the kind of attention that the, sort of stars and very famous people got in Afghanistan in these evacuations. So there seems to be in the evacuations a kind of, I rescued this star from Afghanistan, but I'd like there to be more emphasis on regular people who have done so much to put themselves in danger with the Taliban to get help and support as well.
Meha?
I mean, absolutely getting this family out, getting my other clients that are stuck out, but also just as a system for U.S. immigration to really pass the Afghan Adjustment Act to dedicate more time and more resources to the situation. It dominated news cycles for several weeks in August, but we quickly are seeing that that is going away, and you know, there's always
People forget about it,
people
right?
forget about it, but the need is very much still there, and I mean, you know, admittedly getting worse.
The Afghan Adjustment Act, what would that do?
It would allow a pathway to get a green card or a permanent residence in the United States within a year of them entering, which is a massive difference from other situations. So if so Zora actually wouldn't be able to do like a family-based petition for the family because they're not related. You usually come to the U.S. through work or through family. And so this would allow people who are not necessarily in that position, who maybe have friends here who applied for them and are willing to sponsor them, to really enter U.S. society much more quickly.
Okay. Well, it's certainly a very compelling situation, you know, concerning situation that, you know, we see happening over there right now. And I think it's great that you're doing it for a lot of different immigrants and you're doing it for this particular family. Thank you for coming and telling us about. And I hope that, I imagine a lot of our viewers will want to get involved as well.
Thank you so much for having us.
Unfortunately, we're out of time. I'd like to thank Zora Saeed, Distinguished Lecturer at Macaulay Honors College, and Meha Guri, an immigration lawyer, for joining me today. To learn more about our upcoming shows, you can follow us on Twitter at 121 CUNY TV. For the City University of New York and 121, I'm Cheryl McCarthy.